Welcome back to Real Talk, the show where we sit down with real investors doing real deals and uncover what's actually working in today's market. Today, we got Anton Tamkovich in the building. Anton builds serious operations, but what I respect most about isn't just the deals, it's about the discipline behind it, his mindset, the structure he has, and the way he leads his team. Anton, for the people who don't know more about you yet, can you give us a small intro of who you are, where do you operate, and what kind of deals do you work on?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on today, Deon. So, my name is Anton. I'm 27, from Philadelphia, live in Philadelphia, but I've been in real estate for 5.5 years, coming up on 6 years in May. Got into it during COVID, just stumbled across wholesaling, but ever since, fell in love with the business. They say that your first check is like, or your first assignment is like doing, crack, or what they compare it to. I've never done crack personally, but it's such a great feeling of getting, I think my first deal I made $7,500 on, and I was just going into my senior year of college. So I've never had that much amount of money in my life,
Mhm.
especially back then. So getting into that, once I received it, I was like, wow, this is like legit, this is real. And I just kept going. So now we're doing, developments. We're doing a new construction build right now for a single family. We're still wholesaling a ton. We're doing probably anywhere between 5 to 12 deals a month. You know how this business goes. Sometimes it varies because some deals get pushed to the next month. We're the first of the month, honestly. I hate when that happens, but and then we're doing, I have a built, I think a 1.7, $1.8 million portfolio, real estate portfolio. In the last 2 years, I only started buying a year and a half ago. So
Mhm.
I have two more houses that I'm purchasing to, keep as rentals, and those will be worth around 250 and 170. So that's another $400,000 in, you know, in real estate values that will be added to my personal portfolio. Other than that, yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for this business because it's opened up a lot of doors for me, being so young of age. And I think that anyone that is looking to get into real estate, wholesaling is the greatest way to get into it because it's so little capital. You know what I mean? And you're not,
Mhm.
and it's all about your time, effort, and what you put into it, you'll get out of it.
Amazing. And one of the things which I'm really curious about is you mentioned you started into wholesaling at such a young age, basically during a senior year of college, right? So,
Yeah.
what really got you motivated into getting into this in the first place? Because obviously, from the first look at it, real estate, it feels like, what, this is something which requires a lot of capital, right? But what
Yeah.
made you actually, what, let me just take a shot at this thing.
So I'm going to tell you a little, I guess I can go into like the details of how I got into it because there is some backstory, I guess, because it all stemmed from the summer before, right?
Hmm.
I worked in construction and I hated it because you'd wake up at 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m., be on a construction site at 6, 6:30. You work until 4, 4:30, and then you come home at 5 or 5:30. I had to drive an hour, and then I went to the gym, and then the day is over, right? And I had to do that the whole entire summer. I come from, I'm actually lived in Russia for 10 years, so I moved here when I was 10,
Hmm.
2009, right? My mom is an immigrant. I was raised by my grandma, and me and my sister were raised by my grandma in Russia while my mom lived here. My dad passed away at a really young age when I was only 1.5. So I really had no, I guess like a man in my household, right? So when I was growing up, I always thought that my mom was gonna marry some rich dude, or like I'm gonna have a rich stepdad and he's gonna help me, and he's gonna come and save us. But we struggled a lot. I wouldn't say like we struggled with like the basic necessities, but my mom always made sure that, bills were paid, food was on the table, we had clothes on our backs, roof over our head. She did everything she could in the position that she was in order for us to have a good life, right? But I always knew that I wanted to give back to my mom and my grandma for sacrificing a lot in their lives. So, when I was doing this construction thing, I was always doing side jobs. I was a swim
Hmm.
coach, was a swim instructor, lifeguard, valet. I mean, I did everything, right? Just to make money. I would always help my mom pay bills. I also started DJing when I was like in seventh grade. I would make $300, $400 per gig, give it all to my mom, right? Keep $100 or $200. So when I did the construction, I hated it so much that I told myself that I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power to never end up in that position ever again, because you're going to work with guys that are 40, 50 years old and they're miserable.
Hmm.
Alcoholics, you smell alcohol in their breath at 7 a.m. and you're like, wow, like how can you wake up? First thing you do is drink, and then you do this all over. And in my head, I'm like, there's no way that this is how people just live. I was like, this is
Yeah.
not how I want to live, right? And I've always been curious about how people made money. So whenever I would meet a wealthy person or a rich person or someone with a nice car and a house, I would always ask them, what do you do? You know, and a lot of them did say real estate, attorneys, doctors, and business owners. That was the biggest thing. And for me, I never knew what my business would be or how I'd get into business because I was a tech major. You know, I went to University of Pittsburgh, swam there for 2 years, Division One, majored in computer information science, learned how to code all that, but it wasn't my passion, right? I mean, Deon, you know, your family is probably the same way. You know, if you're a foreigner, like you're either going to be a doctor, computer science, or something of that sort, where it's like 100% you're going to succeed and you're going to make some good money out of college. But I just hated school. You know, I was really always good at finessing school, I guess you can say. You know, I was friends with a lot of people, so I was, you know, I would have good grades. You know, I didn't have
Hmm.
a 4.0 GPA, but I was a 3.5, 3.8 GPA. Um, and I was always into sports. I was friends with every person, so I would have a lot of help in that. And the summer before that, when I was doing a construction job, I came across this book, and it's called The Secret, right? I actually came across the movie. And if you guys that are listening to this and watching this have no idea what The Secret is or how law of attraction works, how manifestation works, how your mindset works, I would highly recommend to watch the movie called The Secret. It's actually free, I think, on YouTube now. Brock Proctor, he was one of the guys that was, you know, I don't know if he was an author or not, but he passed away, and I think to honor him, they made it free. But that kind of opened up my eyes to how law of attraction works and what it is, and how to apply it to your everyday life. And I kept saying for like 5 months. So this was in August, kept saying until December, January, like, hey, I'm gonna have a business, but I don't know what it's gonna be. You know, your junior year into college, that's when you're supposed to have that internship that you're supposed to get that's going to be able to get you a job after college, after you graduate. And unfortunately, this was 2020. So, you know, January,
Peak COVID
February,
time.
yeah, February came around, and then, you know, COVID starts to hit. And I'm just then, too, in February, started to go on TikTok. You know, I seen King, that Asian dude that says, you know, let's go get this money. Like forget his name, but he's actually from Seattle. And I always started seeing his TikToks, and this dude has a very heavy accent. He's making money into real estate. He says there's no license needed. And I kept seeing more of these TikToks, right? When you get head that with the algorithm, you're just gonna get bombarded
Hmm.
with those kind of videos. And you know, me being 20 years, 21, just turned 21, I was very curious like what this is because I want to make a lot of money. I didn't have no money to start. I had no license, obviously no experience. No one in my family has ever had a business or been an entrepreneur or even been into real estate. So this was very, very interesting to me, right? And 2020, COVID hits, cannot find an internship for my life. And I'm like, damn, what do I do? How do I get, you know, a job this summer? Because that's how I paid my bills throughout, you know, school,
Hmm.
rent, food, you know, being a college student, you know, going out, etc. And I remember my girlfriend at the time bought me a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, I'm sure everyone's read
Yep.
it, I'm sure everyone's heard of it. And that kind of, this was like April. And once I read that book, it really opened up my eyes to, you know, what the rich dad was doing and what the poor dad was doing, right? Poor
Hmm.
dad had all this education. He was, you know, by the book. The rich dad never even finished middle school or high school, and he was the successful guy that was making a lot of money and being able to provide for for, you know, his family. So once that kind of clicked for me, like, wow, like I cannot keep going and doing what everyone else is doing. I want to be the black sheep. I want to do something else. I want to basically put myself in a position to make money a lot faster because I cannot wait till I'm 35, 45, 40 years old. You know, my grandma's at the time she was like 77. Now she's 82,
Hmm.
thankfully, and she's alive. She's great, healthy. And I knew that I wanted to give back to my mom and my grandma and my family a lot sooner, a lot faster. So once I finished school that year with finals, you know, I took a leap of faith, I guess you can say, and I was on you know, my mom wasn't making a lot of money. I think I was filling out her financial aid forms and I think I was 36 grand a year is what all she was
Hmm.
making, right?
Hmm.
And I was getting a lot of help from the government, you know, as far as these they're not loans, but they're grants, right? So COVID relief fund, my school thankfully gave people that were on this grant $1,000 each. You know, and I knew in my head, I was like, damn, I can really use this $1,000 to go party, go buy alcohol, go buy weed, you know, go out, do whatever, you know, buy myself clothes, shoes, because $1,000 back then when you're 20 years old is a lot of money. So I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm gonna do the opposite of what my friends are gonna do, and I'm gonna take this $1,000. I'm gonna invest into myself. If it works, if it works, great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Boom, I lose $1,000. At least it wasn't my personal $1,000, right? So it was
Hmm.
kind of a gift from God. And I was, looking up a lot of courses, try to figure out my own. And a lot of people think that courses are scams. And why would someone, make up a course or do education if they're making all this money in the business? And it's more so like to give someone a clear path of what you have to do, right? So I found this one guy, I even hit up all his student, not his, all of them, but hit up like three or four students, one who I'm really good friends with to this day. And I called them like, look, I'm 21. This is my last $1,000. Does this actually work? Can I really close deals? And they're like, yeah, like this is legit. We're real people. It's not fake if you put into work. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. May 1st, bought the course, $1,000. My credit card actually declined it because it was such a big purchase and I
Yeah.
had to rerun it like twice. It was my debit card. And then, history ever since. So why I mentioned the secret and why I mentioned, that whole entire path was because I was basically introduced to law of attraction. So it kind of worked hand in hand to where I was going through, I guess you can say, the spiritual awakening that people call it. Once you figure out how your thoughts create things, like your mind is such a powerful machine that you can use to your advantage. So what I did was use that together. Bought the course, learned how to do acquisitions, how to do marketing, how to do cold calling. That's it. I didn't care about how to find a buyer, what the contracts were, none of that. I knew I had to just find the first deal. So, I would get a piece of paper. I still had, this is like probably my fifth or sixth book.
Hmm.
I got a piece of paper, blank piece of paper, just like this, right? And I would write down, I will get my first deal today, the whole entire page. I will get my first deal today. I'll get my first deal today. I'll get my first deal today. First day didn't get a deal. Second day didn't get a deal. Third day didn't get a deal. But I kept being very faithful, right? I went through the course. It took me like 1 or 2 days because I was really hungry and I really wanted to make it this work. This was Friday. Went through the course Sunday, started making my first calls, got cursed out a few times. Monday, kept calling. Tuesday, kept calling, kept writing in my book. And then I was like, you know what? Tuesday, it's 5 o'clock. I was like, I'm gonna make a few more calls. I haven't had any success, but I have had people that picked up and they're like, yeah, I want to sell, or like, no, it's just they were asking too much money. And I had this one gentleman pick up the last call, and he was like, yeah, I actually do want to sell, but I keep getting calls from you guys, and you guys never call me back. He cursed me out. I'm like, look, Brian, that was his name. I was like, you give me a number that's working for you. I promise you I'll call you back in 30 minutes to an hour with an offer and see if we can make that work. He was asking 45,000 for this house. I offered him 40 grand. He wouldn't budge. He was like, I'll do 44. I'm like, you know what? Let's do 44. I got him down 1,000. Um, and then after that, I posted on Craigslist. It was the only deal I've ever sold on Craigslist. It was my first deal. I posted online and everyone on Facebook was roasting me like, oh, dude, there's no way you'll be able to get 60 grand for this. And one thing that one of my friends told me back then is that definitely always try to mark it up as high as you can. Not obviously out of the moon, but
Yeah.
because you can always come down on price, but you can never go up on price, right? So I marked it up for 62 grand. I think I found a buyer within literally one day for 60 grand, right? Anyway, he ended up renegotiating me down to like 52,500. In my head, I'm like, okay, doesn't matter. I can
Still
potentially
made a
make
profit.
yeah, and I'm like 7,500. Is this serious? And he's like, super legit. I used the title company in the wrong city, send him a purchase and sales agreement, send my seller an assignment agreement. So I was, messing it up, but again, I was learning by doing it, right? A lot of people get this like they come into this mode where they learn a lot, but they don't actually apply it, right? So they're like these information geeks. And I always tell everyone, like, look, learn something, try it out, and then learn from your own mistakes. So then I had that agreement signed, and then I went through a whole entire, bunch of title issues that taught me a lot, and I'm very grateful for it because, I learned why title companies are very important with my first deal. But that whole entire summer, all I did was cold call and, just make calls and try to get more deals. And then I had like probably another 20 grand that summer that I was able to close later in the year. Yeah, and that was 2020. Got my first check in August, went off to school, and then all I did throughout the whole entire year of school was go to classes virtually, cold call classes, cold call, underwrite, cold call classes, offers, right? A lot of my friends were, like I said, just being college guys.
Yeah.
Senior year, you're supposed to be your best year of your life. And they didn't care about jobs or making money, but I wanted to stand out and I wanted to be different. So, I would even ask them like, dude, how are you guys just, just sitting there on the couch, smoking pot, watching TV and playing video games? And they're like, well, this is my time to do so. In my head, I'm like, damn, that really sucks for you, but I'm getting ahead of the curve now. So yeah, and then that was 2020, graduated in 2021 in May, from with honors. And then after that, I told my mom, look, I moved back probably the next day to my mom's house, and then I just ran it up. And then my first month, I probably put like 100,000 in escrow. It didn't close in the next 30 days. It closed probably within the next 4 or 5 months. But moved back to my mom's with 10 grand in my account, and then by like September, October, I already had like $40,000 saved up. You know what I mean? So then ever since then, I kept using the law of attraction, kept manifesting it, kept writing it down, setting up bigger goals for myself, and then just kept reinvesting it all back into the business, back into education, courses. I was one of the first 1,000 or 2,000 people in Pace Morby sub 2 course back in 21 because he came out of it, in 2020, late 2020, I think.
Hmm.
So I joined that right away as soon as I graduated. And yeah, ever since then, just been locked in, disciplined, very disciplined, because I think that's very important. Motivation, gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. So yeah, and that's my story, and then,
Amazing.
you know,
Amazing, Anton. Amazing. I think this is one of the best origin stories. I think it's kind of interesting that he was able to get success at kind of like at a fast pace compared to a lot of wholesalers. Because I heard like a lot of stories where wholesalers they struggle for like 6 months, 7 months, even more than a year just to find that one deal. But I guess at the end of the day, it's about the fact that, you know what, hunger that
yes.
makes, yes, that also drives a lot of things. Plus the fact that you keep manifesting that you're going to get your deal immediately. And I think it just worked everything out in your favor.
Yeah, I think what
So,
you mentioned, hunger, a lot of people don't have that. But I've always had that in my life, right? A lot of people expect things to be given to you. I knew that, again, my mom got remarried to in like 2018. So once I, met my stepdad, I love him, great guy, takes care of my mom and family, but I just knew that there was no one coming to save me. There was only you and yourself. And a lot of people always think that someone is magically gonna pop up into your life, and help you and make you money and help you make money or give you, free 10,000. I don't know what people think that is, but once you've realized that there's no one coming to save you but yourself, that's when things really get real and you're being able to understand, how to go through life, that way. And I think
awesome.
going hand in hand, and like you said, law of attraction, doing a manifestation right when you started helped me a ton because my mindset was right. A lot of
Yeah,
people get very discouraged after a little bit or a few calls, but I didn't.
yeah. No, like that's one thing because like a lot of people, okay, obviously, you know what, man, this is not working and they keep going for 6 months. But I felt like if they don't have the exact mindset, you know what, this is gonna work out, or let's say I know this exact call is coming in. But if you're somewhere in between, probably even you have a conversation with a seller or maybe with the potential buyer, you'll feel like, you know what, you're not manifesting it in the direction you want it. And I think it does change things to the way it goes along the way.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
Anton, amazing story. Now, obviously, it's been quite a while since you started it.
Yep.
Now, tell us how big your team is right now. Where
Yeah,
exactly are you
so
doing deals?
I kept my team lean. I have gone through probably about 18 to 20 people that were in and out of my team. Acquisitions guys, dispositions guys, lead managers, VAs. I mean, I remember, I started hiring in 2022 just to kind of maybe help other people, and I had my friends call for me, but I don't think I had that leadership skill in me yet because I was really young, but I just knew how to make money. Now I have about three acquisitions managers full time. I have one dispositions manager, and then one is part time because he does acquisitions, but then he wants to learn how to do dispo as well. So I'm like, hey, I don't pay them any salary. It's all commission. So, I tell them like, look, I'm here to help you. This is an opportunity for you to learn for free, to learn from me, and to make money, right? I always ask them, give me 6 to 12 months of commitment. I know you're probably gonna, if you have your entrepreneur like me, I understand you. You're gonna want to do your own thing, later on in life. No one wants to have if you're getting into this business, you don't want to have a boss forever. But if you want to keep running it up with me, because there's a lot of things that I'll be able to help you with, you can stay with me, but make that decision after 6 to 12 months. So I have 5 virtual assistants, 4 cold callers, 1 SMS manager, and that's really it. My team is really lean. We're just absolute dogs on the phone. And then we do SMS marketing, cold calling, PPC, and I used to do Facebook. I got out of it for the last 6 months, but I think I'm going to get back into Meta ads, and that's really it. So we started you know, goals.
Hmm.
A lot of
Yeah.
people don't set goals for themselves. So our first goal was like 3 to 5 deals a month, right? And then I
Hmm.
realized I have to also have a number attached to those 3 to 5 deals. So I'm like 100 grand a month. That's what everyone wants to make always. So, up until 2023, I was really struggling to get up to that level because in 2021, 6 months after I graduated college, I made $72,000 in 1 month. And that really kind of it was a high that I just could not get off of. 72 grand as a 21-year-old is freaking insane in 1 month. So then after that, I just kept putting it all back into the business. So SMS has been with me since 2021. I've been crushing it. I think it's the cheapest marketing channel. I think it's also the best marketing channel because of the volume that you can do, and of the opportunities that you get every single day, every week, and every month from SMS. And then we're doing anywhere between 70 grand to $250,000 a month. I know it's a huge number, but again, it's because some deals will, I'm really realistic too. Some deals will get pushed to the next month. Some deals will have title issues that will do 2, 3 months. And then sometimes like in November and October, we got very lucky because some of our deals from August and September got pushed back to where we'd had really big months, right? We had a deal we made $105,000 on in 2024 that also taught me a lot about commercial and things like that. So now we're doing everything, single family, commercial, industrial, whatever we can get our hands on that makes sense and we can sell, we'll do it. We do seller finance and deals, we'll do sub twos. We did a couple of sub twos. I tried to stay away from them, but seller financing we've done multiple times. I personally have a duplex I seller financed. So yeah, man, it's pretty cool. We have a small team, but we're absolutely lethal. And we're doing business in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia specifically, in all the suburbs. We'll do North Carolina, South Jersey, Delaware, and parts of Central Florida as well.
Amazing. Amazing. I know you mentioned you are heavily leaning into the SMS side.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, could you maybe give us a reason why did you choose to lean into SMS as one of your core marketing strategy instead of maybe relying on like cold calling or PPC?
Yeah. So I will something I learned from other mentors in the business was you don't ever want to rely on one marketing channel, right? You don't
Hmm.
ever want to just do one because I've seen it many times in the past where 2 or 3 years ago, my friend was heavily relying on PPC and then something happened with his company and boom, he was just done. No more leads for a month or two and he had to really come back, get into outbound marketing. So for me, I will always have multiple marketing channels no matter what, because one channel may be better than the other that month. But it's great to have leads coming in from every type of direction. So I like SMS because it's cheapest, in my opinion. You're able to send out 2,000 text messages in one day, right? Even more if you want to. I usually keep it at 2,000 to 2,500 a day because that's what my VA can only handle. And that will generate anywhere between 10 to 15 leads per day because some of them will not get delivered. You know, with all of these rules and laws applying to today's day and age, not all 2,500 will be sent out. But in my opinion, it's the cheapest and it's the quickest way because a lot of people would rather answer a text message versus a phone call. And some people are just not comfortable answering a phone call and going through the sales tactic. Like me personally, if someone calls me and tries to pitch me on something, I try to hang up right away because it
Yeah.
annoys me. But if you maybe text me and ask me, then I'll get back to you. And I think that, one of our biggest deals came from there. It was $45,000, we made in 30 days, and it came from a text message. We made it, and then that same month we had a $40,000 deal. So, for SMS, I think the best is pre-foreclosures, sheriff sale data, any type of liens, absentee high owner, high equity absentee owners, and then tired landlords. That's all we
Mhm.
pull. I don't try to overcomplicate anything because once you start overcomplicating the business, that's when you get into your head too much. So, we use
Yeah.
prop stream, kind skip tracing, list source, and, skip trace with kind skip or Versium or skip matrix, put it in there, and then boom. Very simple, very easy. I try to keep it very simple.
I know you mentioned like you send out easily close to 2000 SMSs a day. Now, let's say for someone, or let's say another wholesaler, maybe who wants to lean more into the SMS strategies,
Yeah.
how hard would you say it's to make it work at the scale which you are doing it right now?
I think it's pretty easy, right? So there are multiple SMS platforms that you can use, Launch Control, Smarter Contact, I think is one of them. I use Flex Connect. So, the owner of that is one of my good friends, Gabe. I've known him also since 2020, since me and him got both into the business at the same time. And, he realized that this was something that was missing, right? Back then, there was something called ROAR, ROOR. It's not, I don't think it's existent anymore. But it was like, it was crack because you send out so many text messages, the
Yeah.
replies were crazy, and it was great. So then he wanted to come up with something that was kind of similar to it. So all of his stuff is also white labeled from Go High Level. If you have the time and the skills and you want to go through that and go through Go High Level and get all of those things approved and set up your own SMS, more than welcome to do so. I just personally wanted to pay somebody that already has the system set up. And it's pretty cheap. I think it's only like $200 or $300 a month for the actual membership. And then I would say, data, 10,000 records, just another $300. And then probably the actual SMS cost is anywhere between $300 to $400 too. So $1,200 to $1,000 to $1,200, I think is more than enough per month to be able to get yourself 2 or 3 deals a month. Me personally, if I was just starting out, cold calling, I would hop on the phones, I would get a list, go on PropStream. Literally, that's what I used to do. Go on PropStream, write down addresses, skip tracing by hand with truepeoplesearch.com, also a free source. And then I would just pick up my phone and start dialing. I would make 200 to 300 calls a day when I first started because I was one, hungry, two, I was poor. I mean, I was broke. I was never poor. I had a pretty rich mindset, but I was just broke in my account and I didn't have money to spend on marketing. So that's what I did, and that's what you guys should do as well.
Amazing. Now, for let's say for our audience who really want to understand the in-depth of the SMS process, like can you like break it down for us? Let's say the time when a lead gets the first text to
Yeah.
when it comes to a closing deal, like the first touch, the follow-up cadence, the qualification, transition to when the call happens, the disposition, like a quick breakdown.
Yeah. So with AI and everything going on, Flex Connect actually does have AI. And as all of you guys know, Deon is with closer control. So I am on closer control as well. So what happens is, we'll schedule 4 campaigns in the morning, every 2 hours. We'll send out, I think it's 50 text, 40 text messages every like 10 or 30 minutes like that. And then we'll do that. And then usually we'll start getting text messages the same day. We'll call them if we can. If they don't pick up, it gets put into closer control and then go ahead and get vetted out through closer control as well. But we also have an AI on a Flex Connect as well. So then, if they answer a text message, AI will have a very, very small conversation with them on our SMS platform. Our VA takes down the notes, puts it into Slack channel, and then puts it into the closer control form. And then closer control also gives them a text message saying, "Hey, my other line is busy, but we can text here." And then your AI takes over, right?
Mhm.
Usually, if we get a nice lead that same day and we can agree on a number, it's a one call close, I'll close them that day. Sometimes we even close deals over text message because, like I said, some people do not feel comfortable being on the phones, but you can still close them on the text, right? SMS. We try to do a quick close in 30 to 45 days. I know my market so well, so I know exactly who's buying where and what numbers we have to have it at. We try to dispo our deals within the same week. If we don't, we'll go ahead and put it on the MLS. And that's pretty much it. I mean, usually it takes us between 30 to 45 days in our markets, and in North Carolina is a lot faster. We'll close them in 2 to 3 weeks just because of the title issues. I mean, title process.
Mhm.
In PA, it's a little bit longer than other states. Florida, North Carolina, way faster.
Nice, amazing. And I know you mentioned you have your VAs follow up on those leads, right? So what would
Yeah.
you say is like a couple of the biggest mistakes VAs would make, especially when they're texting sellers? Anything which you ever noticed during your entire time?
Yeah, I mean, look, people my VAs are from the Philippines, so there is definitely a language barrier and understanding. Sometimes they don't understand sarcasm, so sometimes they will send us leads that are being very sarcastic, and we'll call them, and they're actually not real sellers, right? So that's the biggest. I think the biggest thing for us was just kind of I had to teach my VA, look, if this person is saying these things, then they're probably not being serious, but these are the questions that you should ask them. And then just call them, right? I simply tell them, pick up the phone, call them, see if they're an actual owner, if they're an actual seller. And I tell my guys this all the time. Like, I know people are like, oh, don't disqualify every single lead, but I think it's the opposite. If you get on the phone with them and they don't want to sell, what's the
Yep,
point of even wasting your time, right?
exactly.
My sales guy last week was on the phone with this person, and they're literally saying how they live in a house. They would probably need to find a new house. It's, a single mom, and she would need 3 months. And he's like, okay, well, maybe we can agree on something today and we can close on it in 30 days on your timeline. I'm like, dude, she does not really actually want to sell because she has nowhere to go. She still doesn't have a number in mind. Why would you try to get an agreement with her today? We're gonna sell it, and then what? She just backs out in 2 or 3 months, right? It doesn't make sense. You want to find people that actually truly need your help and aren't on the yes, I want to sell. No, I don't want to sell type of thing. But yeah,
Got
follow very important in this game. I have a lead manager as well that will go in and just follow up with their leads. Closer control makes the follow-up system a lot easier because we're able to put them into a drip and they're able to get text messages, every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, every other month, whatever it may be. And then, me personally, if I need a deal this week, I'll go back into my text messages 6 to 8 months from today or my leads from 6 to 8 months from today and call those leads. Because the cash conversion cycle is a little bit slower on outbound. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll be able to get that person the same day, maybe a week, but sometimes it does take you 4 to 6 months for them to kind of understand where you're coming from.
Amazing. I think you have shared us a lot of information, one about your origin journey, two about your team, then about your marketing structures, and a really deep dive into the SMS and also the strategies which you implement within your team. Now, I'm going to step a little bit a step back, and I want to know more about the mentors that actually shaped you, how you run your business today. If you maybe have some particular mentors you want to maybe give a little bit of shout out to.
Yeah, so my first one was Chris Bruce. I actually went to his, I think he turned either 40 or 50 last year in Tampa, and he invited me to his birthday. It was really great. He's in the info space now where he actually helps, students or his previous students or people that have, a course, and he helps them scale it, market it. So he stepped out of the wholesaling game and got into this, and he's crushing it. I mean, his clients are making a lot of money, and he's very good with that because he's been in the I guess the internet landlord business since 2012. He's been selling courses, products, all of that, digital products for over 10 years. Another one was my boy Jay Monopoly. I mean, from him, I went to a couple of his conferences and a lot, he stopped doing them in 2023, I think, but for the first 2 years in 21 and 22, he had a few conferences that he introduced me to a lot of people in the industry that I'm still friends with to this day. And because of his mastermind that I paid for $7,500 for, I met one of my best friends to this day, Abdel. Me and him talk every single day. He's from New York, lives in Miami, my boy John. And then last summer, not 2025, but 2024, I was going through a breakup of 4 years, and I thought that, I need to become a better leader. I was struggling a lot in not with money, but I think with my personal self because I wanted to have better growth. I wanted to be a better leader to my acquisitions guys and to the rest of my team. So I was like, what can I do? And I kept going to these masterminds and these little, networking events. And one of them, Andy Elliott was at, right? This was,
Hmm.
this
Yep.
guy was Jake throwing this event. He's an MCA, sells money for a living and makes a lot of money. And Andy was one of the guys that were speaking there. And I talked to Andy and I'm like, look, I saw him right after his little spiel, and I was like, "Look, I love your energy. I love what you bring to the table. I love how uh, your team is set up, and I'd love to learn more from you because I feel like I'm here for a reason. Everything happens for a reason too. Everyone that you meet is for a reason. Every room that you step in is for a reason. Every person that you encounter will always be there for a reason. You just have to understand why. So I was like, Andy, I'm really interested in working with you. What can I do? He's like, you know what, Anton? Like, I'm having an actual, very event next week in Arizona. There's only 10 guys that are coming in. It's very private. Take my number down and we'll talk later. So I spoke to him. He actually sent me a video of him basically saying, "Hey, Anton, nice meeting you last week." I mean, this guy is making $100 million a year. So for him to take the time out of this day to send me this personal video and to let me know, look, you're going to be one of the youngest guys there, but someone like yourself, you know, that wants is hungry and that wants to grow and that wants to get to that next level, I think you should be here. So in a way, he did sell me,
Hmm.
but I was like, you know what? I think it's worth it. You know what I mean? I had nothing to lose. It was $15,000 for one day just to spend with him
Wow.
and his whole entire team one day, right? We woke up at 6 a.m., had a hard workout, ran, went back to his house in Scottsdale, and it was me and 10 other entrepreneurs. All of these guys were over 45 years old, 40 years old, I would say. But all of them had really big businesses, oil businesses, HVAC businesses, roofing companies, restoration companies, and they were making millions and millions of dollars a year. But the one thing that brought them there was because they wanted to be better leaders to not just their team, but to their families. They wanted to be
Hmm.
better husbands, then they wanted to be better fathers, right, to their kids. And I wanted to be, and I would just wanted to learn from them because in my head, I'm like, damn, these guys are making millions of dollars. Why are they still learning? Why are they still investing all
Yeah.
this money into themselves? And I kind of understood once I got closer to Andy that, if you want to grow and you want to get to the next level and you want to make more money and you want to be a better person, you have to invest into yourself, but you have to learn from people that already are doing it, right?
Yeah.
Andy made that
Always be a student, right?
always be a
Always
student.
have to be a student.
So Andy made like $110 million that year and just being literally in his apartment, walking barefoot, and being able to hang out with him and his family. His kids were there, his wife was there, and all the other guys. It was so cool to me. And I realized, seeing his team, we also went to his office, seeing how his
Hmm.
guys treated him, the culture that he created. I was like, wow, I want the same culture. And I asked him some questions, but he did teach me how to be a better leader that day. And it's more so care about your team than you care about yourself. Make sure that the guys next to you are making money and eating. And obviously, if you want your team to do something, you have to do it first. You have to be an example. You have to set an example. And I think that was one of the cool experiences that I had because I mean I was like what 25
Hmm.
putting up $15,000 to be in one
Yeah.
for one day to be in that room was pretty cool. And then he tried to pitch me on the Brotherhood that it's $100,000, but Brad Lee's in it, Eric Klein's in that, Andy Frisella is in that Brotherhood. So again, that's even tighter knit, but it's $100,000 a year to be a part of that, right? But imagine what kind of information you learn just by being around those guys and in that room and how motivated you are to also be making 50 to $100 million a year. So there's always levels to this shit, and you
Yeah.
just got to keep on, like you said, being a student of the game.
Exactly. Amazing. Amazing, Anton. So obviously I'm pretty sure you learned a lot of stuff, especially from all the mentors. So, and I know you have been applying these principles to your business as well. What would you say is some of the non-negotiables in how you run a business and how you lead your team?
So non-negotiables for me personally is physically like, and I tell this to everyone as well that I talk to that are like struggling a little bit. I'm like, look, get your mental right first, get your spiritual right second, get your physical right third, and then the financial is going to come fourth, right? Because if you get those first three things in order and you're disciplined and you're consistent with it every single day, the finances are just inevitable that they're going to come. If you have a very strong mentality to where nothing can break you and that you wake up every day with the same attitude that I'm going to get after it, I'm going to make money today, I'm going to make 100 grand this month, I'm going to make 250 grand this month, whatever that goal is for you, and you should have a goal and your goals should be bigger than what you think you can achieve, right? I started off with 50 grand a month. Now I'm at 250 grand a month, right? Because I see my friends that are making $500,000 a month and I want to be just like them, but I know I got to take smaller steps. That's the mental aspect, right? The spiritual aspect is I think every entrepreneur whenever they become an entrepreneur, finds God. And I've always been, religious. I've always believed it because, like again, my dad passed when I was 1.5, so I always have that angel that's guarding me, that's looking over me, that's watching over me. So I had that relationship with the universe and God beforehand, but really became a lot stronger once I became an entrepreneur, and there was literally no one that you can turn to, that's gonna listen to you and help you. So I think having God in your life, whatever you believe it, Allah, God, Jesus, there's so many things that you can believe in, but whatever, if there's that higher power that you believe in, the universe, I think it's important to do that, right? To ask things, to pray, and to just be grateful. I think gratitude is very important. And then physical aspect, I've never bought a course or, gotten education from anyone fat because I believe, and again, no offense, people that
Yeah.
are overweight. But I think that, if you want to better yourself and you want to lead by example, you will work on yourself physically, and then the financing
Exactly.
will always come. The one thing that I did learn, not learn, but I heard the other day, and that stuck with me, and this is something that I did, was stay small enough. Here, I'll actually read it to you word for word.
Thank you.
Uh, because this was, I think, very important for everyone to understand, because I've seen this over and over where people make a quick 50 to 100 grand in 1 month, spend it all, or like just relax.
Yeah.
So stay small enough, long enough, and you'll be big enough soon enough, right? So I think that should resonate with a lot of people. Stay humble, stay down, and eventually you're gonna be able to be that guy, or you're gonna have that money in your account. You'll be able to drive that car, be in that house, but it's gonna take you some time, right? A lot of people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they
Yeah.
underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
Okay.
So, my message to you guys is to stay, again, I'm gonna read it again, stay small enough, long enough, so you'll be big enough soon enough, right? And I think it's very important.
Wonderful. Wonderful, and wonderful message. Well, I know we're almost towards the end. I know we're a little bit over the time, but I just have to ask you this one last question. So, what do you think is going to be the next big thing to blow up in real estate? Is it going to be AI, SMS automation, creative finance, maybe data plays, compliance shift?
So I don't think it's going to be creative finance, from everything that's kind of going on right now in the industry. I mean, creative finance has been there for a long time, but there's just so many newbies that kind of messed it up for a lot of people. I think that data centers are huge. So you know, if you are able to source warehouses and those kind of things is very important. But I honestly truly don't know, because of how, the government works, how the economy is going right now. I mean, I think that as long as you're staying consistent, and you're, doing what you have to do every single day, you'll be successful no matter what. A lot of people said that last year was one of the worst years to be into real estate. In
Mhm.
2024, one of the worst years to be in real estate. Last year we did $1.6 million. We doubled what we did in 2024. In 2024, we made, $105,000 off of one deal. And people were saying it was the shittiest markets. So my message to you is also, fear mongering is very real, and they do that for a reason. Don't listen to them. As long as the world is intact, and there's no nuclear war, then I think that you'll be just fine. Don't listen to the other people that aren't making it, because all of my friends that are successful, they're still going to be successful, they're still going to make money. I'm still always going to make money no matter what. Yes, there will be some bad months, yes, there will be some bad weeks, but no matter what, as long as your mental is correct and you have God aligned with you and you're aligned with your spirit, and I guess the aligned with the money energy, you'll always come. And don't get
Amazing.
the shiny object syndrome, because I know right now
Yeah.
the biggest thing is life insurance, and everyone's like, "Oh,
Oh
let
yeah,
me go
I've
and sell
seen a
it."
lot of people going after that right now, and I've seen a lot of people trying to sell me life insurance out of the blue. I'm like,
Yeah.
where are all of these people coming from?
And
Like,
look,
I never.
I think it's a great industry too, because right, it's very cheap, it's low overhead, you can get into it, but it's not easy. A lot of people
Mhm.
think that it's easy, right? Nothing in this world is easy. Wholesaling, very simple concept, not easy. Selling life insurance, very simple, not easy. Because again, you got to put in the time and the hour and the efforts in the beginning in order for it to be nicer, later on in life. So
Yeah,
just
I
stay
think
small enough, long enough, you'll be big enough soon
big enough
enough.
soon enough. Anton, I respected amazing insights and also giving us a ton of value regarding your discipline, the structure, the standards, the non-negotiables. And I think that's one of the things, right? Like a lot of wholesalers, they just want the tactics, right? But they don't want the training, they don't want the channel, and
Yeah,
they don't want to do the reps and stuff. And I think what you made it clear today is all of these things combined together, given the time, given the motivation, is going to give you success.
yeah.
So, guys, if you're watching this and if you're not winning right now, don't blame the market, blame your process because
Blame
operators.
yourself, the process, yourself,
Exactly.
and then also your fear. Because again, the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with, it's either you're paying with money or you're paying with time.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no if, ands, or buts. Either you're going to pay someone time, I mean money, to be able to save you time, or you're just going to put in the time in yourself in the beginning stages, right? That's why you have VAs later on, and that's why you have closer controlled. I mean, it's not cheap, but it works and it saves you time because you're paying the money. And don't be cheap, because you got to spend money. You got to spend money to make money. You know what I mean?
True that.
Especially
True
in
that.
today's world. So
True that. Anton, thank you so much once again. And just to reiterate what Anton said, obviously, if you guys are watching this and you're not winning right now, blame yourself. Because operators who track the numbers, who train their people, who build the discipline like an athlete, they would win in any market.
Yep.
Anton is one of the leading examples of that. And for guys, if you do not know, Anton is one of the most biggest operators we have in cruiser control too.
Appreciate it.
So appreciating you coming on, brother. This was real. So, guys, if you got value from this, drop a comment, share with another wholesaler, and we'll see you on for the next week of Real Talk episode where we break down what's actually happening in today's market. Thank you so much, Anton. With this, I'm ending
Hey,
the show.
Deon, let's get some money. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you, brother.
See ya.